The chill that settles in a cemetery after midnight is different. It's not just the temperature dropping. It's a cold that seeps into your bones, whispers against your ear, and makes the hairs on your neck stand on end. I've worked the night shift at Cemeterio Blackwood for 5 years now, and I've learned a lot about that kind of cold. More than I ever wanted to. Most people think a cemetery at night is silent, but it's not. There's always something. The rustle of dry leaves, the distant cry of an owl, or sometimes something less definable, something that sounds like a sigh carried on a breath of wind that isn't there. My name is Arthur, and my job is to patrol these grounds from dusk till dawn. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just walk around, make sure no vandals are defacing headstones, no teenagers are having a morbid party. But it's not simple. Not in Cemeterio Blackwood. We have rules here. Unspoken rules, mostly. Rules that aren't written in any employee handbook, but are passed down from one night watchman to the next, like a grim inheritance. And I've learned to follow them, or at least to understand their necessity. Because breaking them, I've found, has consequences far worse than a written warning. The first rule, the most fundamental, is never look directly into a freshly dug grave after sunset. Never. My predecessor, Silas, told me this on my very first night. His eyes, roomy and ancient, held a knowledge that made my stomach churn. The earth breathes, Arthur, he'd rasped, his voice like gravel. And what it exhales, you don't want to see. I dismissed it as an old man's superstition, a way to scare the new guy. But then, a few weeks later, a new plot was opened for a sudden burial. I was doing my rounds, flashlight cutting through the gloom, and I saw it. A dark rectangle, a gaping maw in the earth. Curiosity, that dangerous human trait, tugged at me. Just a quick glance, I thought. What harm could it do? I shone my light into the void. It was just dirt, of course. Dark, rich earth. But then a faint shimmer, almost imperceptible, seemed to rise from the depths. It wasn't mist, it was too ethereal, too deliberate. And for a fleeting second, the darkness within seemed to deepen, to coalesce into something that wasn't merely absence of light, but an active, consuming presence. I felt a pressure in my chest, a sudden, suffocating weight. My breath caught. I stumbled back, my heart hammering against my ribs. It was gone as quickly as it appeared, leaving me shaken, feeling foolish, yet undeniably terrified. I didn't see anything concrete, no ghastly apparition, no skeletal hand reaching out. Just that feeling. That overwhelming sense of being drawn into an emptiness that promised to never let go. From that night on, I never looked directly into an open grave. Silas was right. The earth breathes. And sometimes, it breathes back. The second rule is about the names. You see, every grave here has a name, a life, a history, and sometimes a story that lingers. The rule is, never speak a name aloud after midnight, especially not one that feels too close, too recent, too raw. It's not about disrespect, it's about not inviting attention. Because some names, Silas explained, are still listening. They're still waiting. I always thought it was psychological, that hearing a name echoed in the dead of night would just play tricks on your mind. But then there was the incident with the young woman, Eliza Vance. Died tragically, a car accident, just 22. Her grave was new, the flowers still vibrant. One night, a dense fog rolled in, thick and suffocating, swallowing the headstones whole. I was disoriented, my path obscured. I muttered her name, Eliza Vance, just to orient myself, to confirm which section I was in. The air around me went still. The fog, which had been swirling, seemed to part slightly, creating a clear, narrow path directly to her headstone. And then I heard it. A faint, almost imperceptible hum, like a distant, mournful song, seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath my feet. It wasn't music. Not really. It was a vibration, a resonance that felt both sorrowful and expectant. As if, by speaking her name, I had opened a door, or at least unlocked a memory that was eager to be revisited. I didn't see anything, of course, but the feeling of being observed, of having invited an unseen presence, was palpable. I backed away slowly, my heart pounding, and didn't utter another name for the rest of that shift. The hum faded as I retreated, leaving only the oppressive silence of the fog. It was a silent conversation, a response to an unwitting invitation. And it taught me the power of a name, even a whispered one, in the realm of the departed. Then there's the third rule, perhaps the most unsettling. Never, under any circumstances, touch a grave that has been freshly marked with a small, smooth stone. Not a headstone, but a single, unadorned pebble placed deliberately on the grave's surface. These aren't part of the usual memorial traditions. They appear randomly, sometimes on graves decades old, sometimes on those just laid. Silas never explained why, only that they were a marker, a warning. I saw one once, on the grave of a child who had died in the 1950s. A tiny, smooth gray stone sitting perfectly centered on the worn marble. My hand almost instinctively reached out. A fleeting thought of tidying up, of making the place look more presentable. Before my fingers could make contact, a sharp, cold current, like static electricity, shot through the air around the stone. It wasn't painful, but it was startling, a clear, undeniable repulsion. And then, the faint scent of something metallic, like old blood and damp earth, wafted into my nostrils. It was sickly sweet, cloying, almost suffocating. My hand recoiled as if burned. I felt an intense, irrational fear, a dread that clawed at my throat. It was as if the stone itself was a conduit, a seal, and touching it would unleash something ancient and malevolent. I never tried again. The stones appear, they sit, and they are left undisturbed. They are not ours to move, not ours to question. They are simply there, and they carry a weight, an unspoken significance that chills me to this day. But there's one rule, one unspoken truth that I break every single night. It's not one Silas taught me or one I learned from a chilling experience. It's one I discovered myself, born of necessity and a desperate hope. The rule is, never linger too long by the grave of a suicide. The official reason, the one you might hear in a dusty old book, is that their spirits are restless, trapped between worlds, and prone to attachments. But the real reason, the one I understand, is far more complex. They are the ones who deliberately chose their exit. And sometimes they leave behind a question, an unanswered echo. And I, Arthur, am one of those echoes. My sister Clara is buried here. Section C, row 17, plot 42. She took her own life 5 years ago, just a month before I started this job. A quiet girl, always sketching, always lost in her own beautiful, melancholic world. The official cause was depression, but I refused to believe it was that simple. I know her, I knew her, and I believed there was more. So every night, around 3 a.m., when the cemetery is at its darkest, its most silent, I go to her grave. I sit there, I talk to her, I tell her about my day, about the strange things I've seen, the rules I've learned. I ask her why. Why did she leave? What was she looking for? What did she find? I know it's breaking all the rules, lingering, speaking a name, but it's not for me, it's for her. And perhaps selfishly for me too. Because sometimes, when the wind blows just right, or when a stray beam of moonlight catches the marble of her headstone, I feel a shift, a subtle change in the air pressure, a faint warmth against my cheek. It's not a voice, not a vision, it's just a feeling. A whisper of presence, a fleeting suggestion that she's still here, still listening, just as Silas said some names do. And for those precious moments, the cold of Cemeterio Blackwood doesn't feel quite so absolute. The dread doesn't cling quite so tightly. One night, as I sat there, a small, smooth gray stone appeared on her grave. Not a pebble, not a typical memorial, just like the one Silas warned me about. My heart seized. Was it a warning? From whom? Or was it something else? I stared at it, my hand trembling, remembering the metallic scent, the static shock. But this was Clara, my sister. My grief, my desperation, warred with the ingrained fear of the rules. I reached out, slowly, cautiously. My fingers hovered just above the stone. No static, no strange smells, just the cold, smooth surface. I touched it. It was cold, yes, but not menacing. It felt smooth, familiar almost, as if it had been worn by countless touches. And then, I noticed something etched faintly into its surface. A small, almost imperceptible symbol. A tiny, swirling spiral. It was a symbol Clara used to draw endlessly in the margins of her notebooks. A secret mark, a private language we shared. My breath hitched. This wasn't a warning. This was a message. From her. Or perhaps for her. A realization dawned on me, chilling and profound. The rules, the warnings, they were for the others, for the restless, the forgotten, the ones who lingered with malevolent intent. But Clara was different. She was a part of this place, yes, but she was also a part of me. The stone, I understood then, was not a barrier, but a bridge, a silent communication, a confirmation that even in death, some connections endure. I picked up the stone. It fit perfectly in my palm. I pocketed it, a small, cold comfort against my skin. It was a brazen act, a direct defiance of the most unsettling rule. But I didn't feel fear, only a strange, melancholic peace. The other rules, I still follow. I never look into open graves. I never speak other names aloud. The smooth stones on other graves I leave untouched. But for Clara, for my sister, I break the rules. Because sometimes the greatest terror isn't in what the dead can do to us, but in the silence they leave behind and the desperate hope we cling to. Seeking just one more word, one more sign. The sun will soon begin to paint the horizon, banishing the deepest shadows. My shift is almost over. The other night watchmen, they follow the rules. They survive. But I, Arthur, I break them. And in doing so, I find a different kind of survival. A survival of memory, of connection, even across the ultimate divide. This cemetery, with its whispers and its unspoken rules, is not just a place of the dead. It is a place of lingering truths, of unanswered questions, and of the quiet, defiant acts we perform in the face of the unknown. And I will keep coming back, night after night, to listen, to speak, and to carry this small, smooth stone, a tiny spiral of hope in the vast, silent darkness. If stories like mine make your skin crawl and your mind race, if you crave the chill of a true mystery, then you need to subscribe to Nightfall Tales. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what secrets the darkness holds next.